When we got the news that my cousin Y's cancer had come back a second time, it didn't cross my mind that she would die. I thought she would survive it. She was only 40 years old, but the cancer had spread all over and her condition deteriorated rapidly. She died in the nighttime, holding her mother's hand. This was weeks after the country had been placed on lockdown alert level 5, and because we couldn't travel, my mother and I watched the funeral on Zoom. This, as the old saying goes, is how we live now. This has been a time of unremitting grief. People have lost loved ones, homes, jobs, and suffered all kinds of setbacks, large and small. At a time like this, the promise literature holds out to us is that we are never alone. During a phone conversation in the early days of South Africa's lockdown with the writer and audio producer Catherine Bow, one of the contributors to this book, we discovered that we'd each been turning to Svetlana Alexievich's Chernobyl Prayer, a chronicle of the future, an oral history of the nuclear disaster in the Soviet Union in 1986, to make sense of the times. As we stared out onto the wide, empty streets from our respective homes, Alexievich's words resounded in our ears like a prophecy. We now find ourselves on a new page of history. The history of disasters has begun. In one of the essays contained in this book, the novelist Ishtiaq Shakri remembers sitting with friends at a coffee shop in central London days before the World Health Organization declared coronavirus a global pandemic on 11 March 2020. Echoing the misplaced optimism of those early days, Shukri writes, consensus around the table was that the virus would probably be under control by June 2020. That the number of COVID-19 deaths in South Africa a year later would total more than 50,000 at the time of writing was something that lay beyond the reach of our imaginations. Who would have foreseen that millions of us would live in a state of almost permanent low-grade anxiety and fear of contracting the virus and possibly dying from it? While this is not a book about the pandemic, there has been no escaping its mark on our world. In April 2020, when my father was diagnosed with cancer and admitted to hospital, I couldn't travel home. Mary Watson writes in the essay which opens this collection, Neither Here Nor There.